to remove and make safe. I think I'm just pointing out to you, there's a whole lot of things to consider should you head down the track of condoning this. There is a general principle with assessment manager had on again, there is a general principle that signs should be on the related to the advertising, i.e. if it's a petrol station and it's advertising that petrol station, it should be on that petrol station land. That is one principle. Another principle is that signs should not advertise third party. So they shouldn't advertise McDonald's down the road or Hungry Jack's up the road, or they should be strictly advertising the premises that they're related to. And as I said before, there is significant concerns around digital signage and the repeating images and the illumination and the potential impact upon traffic. What you'll see, I think, with this particular application is the DIT, what I think's happened, the one change that has happened recently is the change in the speed limit. So it's a 60k limit now, was an 80k limit, and that does make quite a significant change the way DIT look at roadside signage. So taking that all into account, we had a sign that was put up without approval. It was then made subject to a development authorisation, which was refused. The sign was removed. The Peregrine indicated that they would still like to pursue a sign there, make some modifications. I informed them that critical to any decision would be DIT's advice. I didn't really think they'd be able to get DIT's approval. They have. And hence now they could get development approval. That development approval is hypothetical without section 221 over to council.
Councillor Roundtree.
One of the concerns I have, Miles, is that if we allow this to happen, we could actually see an influx of signs down the highway advertising businesses in the main street, and they would love that. That's actually been something they've wanted, to get people into the main street of Tailem Bend to have signage on the highway, and this would start precedent to see that happen. And it could just be a Las Vegas flashing lights all down there, and we would have no power to stop it. I think that was a very distracting sign when it was up, with the flashing and the lights and everything else. So I'm actually not supportive of doing this, mostly because of the fact that it sets a precedent that could just be a runaway train for us.
So just Councillor Quallen before, and I'm glad I hear you saying that, because assessment managers had on, I completely agree with you. However, the idea of an approved, like a council condoned sign when you're entering a service road in a non-digital form would be a fingerboard sign that lists the businesses in that service road. I could imagine a digital sign that actually does the same. And it would be easier to change because it's digital. So if a business closes, well, you know, it's probably quite easy to change. But that would require the agreement of all the business owners and council to establish a sign like that. My personal view is that's probably not going to be supported by the commercial entities, because what they're really looking for is a full functionality of digital sign that has pictures of coffee cups and burgers. I will state it is a very evolving environment, and as I said, policy is not keeping pace with it. There's something I heard of last week whereby a petrol station pylon sign, where you normally see a static image at the top, they've actually putting in a digital image in a council area that change frequently and is advertising third party. So they're kind of stretching and pushing the planning environment, And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think we need to really think carefully about what the response might be to a change of policy that allows digital signing on roadside.
The other danger could be when you're driving down the highway and there's flashing lights, generally if there's been an accident or there's roadworks, it captures your attention because the lights are bright and you're distracted to look in that direction. Having that kind of thing as you are driving in through a town where we hopefully will have from the EV station to the main street some sort of crossing through there as well, where people might be crossing the road. It's sort of like another distraction that could be, well, it's not necessary. Everyone knows the service station is there. They capture a lot of traffic. I don't see what it would bring. I mean, obviously they do, but I don't think it's going to be beneficial and a good look for our town to do it. My personal point of view.
Councillor Qualman, then Councillor O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First of all, I share the same opinion with Councillor Roundtree. I'd have concern that we let this one come through and it'd be looking like Las Vegas, the amount of flashing signs. My concerns are at various points of line of sight, also distraction to the passing traffic. And it's another obstacle for our maintenance crews come community facilities to get around whilst mowing council land. And also a question to Miles through the chair is, when the sign was up before, how was he powering that? Like he had a cord across the road or had batteries, or how did it work?
No, I believe they must
Well-
have gone ahead and cut
underground.
a channel through the road and
Yeah,
an underground cable. There was no cord across the road, or we would have stopped that. I think what happened, look, I don't want to have a crack at Peregrine. I think what happens in the big companies often is that there's a miscommunication between the people who have to seek the approvals and the people who do the work. And I think that's simple as that. And they were apologetic when it was pointed out to them that they hadn't had authorisation. And they then went through the right processes with us, even though it took some time.
In closing then, I definitely will support option 1. Thank you.
Councillor O'Hara.
And I agree with all the others, but it is a bit disappointing when 50 metres before this place, kids have got a big sign up, big electronic sign up there. Sort of looks a bit hypocritical, doesn't it? So you can't put your sign up, but JIT can put up what they like. It's on their land, I know.
Isn't that a warning sign?
There's something about abalone.
Abalone.
We've taken abalone for the
Yeah.
last 4 months in different
Transport.
colours.
Yeah,
There's
transport.
no abalone around here.
I don't need.
I'm glad.
So I do believe their sign would have been solar pad.
A battery. Yeah. So just I might add, Councillor O'Hara, thank you. I've noticed how the road information signs that did, the other ones on trailers have been varied and used a bit, shall I say. That would be as much of a concern, and they are probably far more of a road hazard than this. I think Councillor Qualman, one of my issues with this particular location, this sign is sight distance for people leaving, heading south normally. Pretty difficult little spot there. I've got Councillors Maidment, then Bland, I think. We got extension for another 10 minutes, Laura. Sorry. Everyone happy with that? Yep. Councillor Maidment.
thank you, Mayor. I'm in agreement with option 1, but I do have a question as to whether in the future perhaps a sign such as that could be erected at part of that southern car park when it's refurbished, whether the council could be in negotiation with them and debt for that. It's further enough away and it still advertises their business. Putting that out there.
I'll put my assessment manager hat on again, and that would be something I would probably refuse
Okay,
as an assessment manager because it's so distant from the business.
right. So, okay.
Councillor Bland.
Option 1, I think, is very limiting in that I think option 2 gives us an opportunity to actually fully discuss where we are going in the future with some of this. While we could basically just go with option one. I think we need to look at where things are going in the future. They're changing the speed limits. This just happens to be about this community and this township. Highways go through most of the other towns as well that may need to look at it. So I'm actually in favour of looking at public consultation on communities' roadside signage policy. Now, that may take a little bit of time, and we need to become current on it and bring it back with more information. I don't want to see us just restrict it at this point in time without actually giving due consideration, but also, you know, some of the concerns you hear from businesses and groups off the highways, the same as we hear from the community here, happens in all of the towns. And I would like to see us look at option two.
Okay.
So I'll support option two.
On suspended standing orders, is there any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Peach?
I found this one interesting, Mr. Mayor, because on the one hand, I don't want to be obstructing growth of business. On the other, though, I think the sign that I saw coming into town today made me sit up and go, yeah, don't need that. That sign is atrocious. It's in red and blue police colours.
The Abalone one.
The Abalone one, to start off with. And I think we should actually be going back to them about that. Because I think that's inappropriate in the first instance. And obviously we've got no control there. I'm sort of in line with Councillor Bland at the moment, but I'm probably going to go further and say we actually do both options. That we write back to them and say it's outside of the policy and it can't proceed at this point in time, but the council will explore the issue further rather than respond to this specific application. I think that's where I'm thinking. That's where I'm thinking at the moment, but I have some particularly after driving this morning and really paying attention to the location and the sign before it, I think I've got some serious concerns about the potential for it to be misused.
Okay. So I'm looking at the governance and that. Is 1 and 2 not exclusive, not mutually exclusive?
We're just having a look, Mayor.
Through the chair, one of the issues I have is that I've got a development application lodged and I have to act upon it within a certain time frame. Hence, that's why the options are written in the way they are. Effectively, it surprised me, council, actually, to tell you the truth. I was a little bit worried that you're all going to be in favour of granting a T21, and then I was going to move fairly quickly with the roadside policy. But I'm quite comfortable with Councillor Peach's approach, which is to actually deal with the application in front of us, and noting also there's still some concrete in the position in the nature strip that really should be removed. Deal with that, deal with the development application so it meets the appropriate time frame, and then take adequate amount of time to research the roadside signage policy and all the complexities. And quite frankly, I'm pushing for this to be done across the state because we've all got the same challenge with digital signage. And we're all talking about the same thing. Planners are all talking about the same thing. That's going to take a good, 6 months or more to work through.
Expect that. Happy with that.
I think we just take them both. It's just this. Yeah. It's licensed to do what it needs to do immediately, and that's the direction to council, the staff to move forward.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So both of them in the full wordings would, as 1.1.
How does that work? The first one gives you
Yeah,
license to do what you do, and the second one is direction to council of the work that we need to do into the future.
I think we just need to take out the council
Yeah.
may consider a permit. I don't want to give them that. I was very careful about using the word may. It's
Put it on two
non-committal.
different lines.
So I just want to make sure that I'm not giving them the indication that they hold off for a month or two and I think they should basically forget at this stage about that sign and that location. I have incredible problems with it anyway because it's opposite a residential premise.
Councillor Arthur, while we're still in suspension.
I'm happy with that.
At this stage, if we stick to our policies, what they're there for. We had a few years ago a sign for an Adelaide motel out on the highway, which had to be removed, so it went on to private property.
Yep.
And that was quite all right there, but that was removed because it was in an illegal sign. The thing is, if you approve this one, what grounds have you got to knock someone else back? I agree that the whole of signage needs to be looked at, and I agree with Miles. It shouldn't be looked at as a council to council basis. It should be something that we looked at as a standard policy for councils all over South Australia. Otherwise, you can go from here. Tatiara's got a completely different outlook on signs than we have. Remember back, there was a sign going to be put down the highway, which our planning officer knocked back, and you go to Tatiara in Keith and Bordertown, there's lovely little signs, very nicely put, 5 or 6 foot off the
Not allowed to have them.
off the highway, showing all the signs. So at this stage, in my opinion, we've got no option but to take option 1, but have an investigation into the signs.
So councillors, you're seeing option 1 or a revised position of bringing the two together on the screen is.
Yeah, no, we get rid of the given. Yeah.
Yep.
And thank you.
I think, can I just make this other comment? I think it would not be a good move now to say, yeah, we're going to review our sign policy. It's almost as if we're going to say, well, we're going to knock you back, but just hang on and we'll give it to you.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
That's a good point, actually. It does sort of say that. Yeah.
No,
I don't think so.
if I may, Mr. Mayor, I think we do need to, given DIT's in principle support, this is something that's going to become an ongoing issue potentially. And I think the situation we need to recognise is that technology is changing. As Councillor O'Hara pointed out, battery options for this sort of thing mean that these signs will become less disruptive to infrastructure. So I think we do need, we've already got the policy into review. It's one of the ones that's been circulated last month.
I wouldn't say that next line, given DIT's in principle support, because
Yeah,
that is saying. Yeah.
No, I'm quite happy with it as it is. I'm just saying that given the surprise at DIT's support.
I wouldn't even say that.
No, I'm not saying to put it in there, I'm just saying it verbally.
You could turn around another application
Yes,
that
it
might
is
have a
as well.
different.
Yeah.
Could that be a separate motion? So it's not in this one, that we're very clear with our number 1, we're not going to do it, but then a second motion would be to do that. And we do both, but not in the one, so that we're not confusing the matter.
I see it as a catalyst anyway.
Yeah,
Then to the applicant that we might change our mind in 3 months' time.
Doesn't change. We could do it as 2 separate motions, councillors.
I would support 2 separate
All right.
motions on that.
Well, I'm going to take us out of suspension of standing things, and councillors, you've got on your screen now the culmination of 20 minutes of discussion. If you wish to separate points 1 and 2,
I'll move option 1 at this stage.
point 1. Let's just
At point 1, sorry.
point 1 of what's now on the screen. That is the
Simply
same
that
as
it's not in
option 1 in the
accordance
thing.
with that, and therefore it's not. And then I'd like to move another motion after that one.
All right. So councillor Arthur's moving as reads in the agenda, option 1, I believe. Ashley, I'm just thinking. And is there a seconder? Councillor, we're going to
Councillor Qualman.
Bowman. Yeah, no, I had a brain flight. Councillor Arthur, you wish to speak to your motion?
I think I've already done that.
Already done that. Councillor Qualman is the seconder. You want to add to anything in option 1 is become motion 1?
No, I think we're heading the right direction. We had a good discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further councillors wish to add to that process? Being none, you'll close. So I'm going to put motion 1 will be that council advise the Peregrine Corporation that their request is not in accordance with council's roadside signage policy. Therefore, a section 221 permit will not be granted. With the motion, councillors, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously.
Motion,
You foreshadowed roughly,
Second,
which you
yeah.
can't do. But anyway, you want to do a second motion, which is similar to,
that council review its roadside policy
with the inclusion of public
in
consultation.
conjunction with the LGA.
Why the LGA?
Well, instead of having 68 councils with 68 roadside policy rules, why not try and get one?
Because it probably varies from council to council. Be more bespoke about how we manage it here. So I don't think we need
Okay.
one, yeah. in
I'm
that. I wouldn't support that.
The council instigate a review of the roadside policies. That's all you have to do, because it has to go, when a policy has to go to public consultation anyway, so.
No, it doesn't.
Motion 2 is moved by councillor Arthur, and that is council reviews its roadside signage policy with the inclusion of public consultation.
No,
Not the bit of additional.
And Ashley, sorry, we're eliminating. I think councillors, we all understand where we are. We wouldn't want to
I
mention.
don't think the digital should come into it,
because
because it's all other signs. And there's a proliferation of signs. Now, if we want to go back some 10 years ago, council did a review of all the signs of councillor Brand would probably remember that, including ones on the footpaths. And they had to be licensed. So we went around, it cost us about $5,000 to get about $300 in $5 once only charges for the signs.
We've got a seconder.
Sharon?
We've got a second as councillor Peach. Councillor Arthur's got away. It's pretty, yeah, we know where we want to be. Confining it to any more words is probably going to confuse it. Councillor Peach, you want to speak to it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will actually. I think this provides us a few opportunities. One is, as we've discussed today, around changes in technology. I think the other is, as Councillor Arthur identified, the signage in the Tatiara. It's very specific to their locality. It's visually pleasing. And if that's something we can do to encourage local businesses to advertise in a way that actually meets the character of our district, I think that's something we should explore further. So I think reviewing this policy significantly with some public consultation around what that could look like gives us the basis to move forward. So I do support and endorse the motion as it currently reads.
Any other councillors? There's no one else. Councillor Arthur, you'll close.
Yeah, I'll just make the comment that the Tatiaras through Keith and Watertown is a very good idea, because every sign is exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's the same design, it's only the graphics which are different, which makes it quite easy on the eye. Nice.
It's closed, councillor Bland, sorry.
I had a question.
Just quickly then.
My question is around the level of public consultation.
Well, it would
What is
follow our proposals as per normal, Ashley, wouldn't it?
That'd be our standard,
Standard.
21 days, releasing any draft policy for full.
Just wanted to
consultation.
be clear for those who are quite interested in this, particularly small business as well.
Okay, I'm going to put the motion. We review our roadside signage policy after with the inclusion of public consultation. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you for that long and thoughtful discussion around a changing subject. Cape Tintinara Apex Park, number 9. Is there, Joel, do you want to come to a mic over here, please? So it appears public consultation that are in the agenda around the station master, and
That was
I
interesting.
can join the dots up now around the history. That was,
Ross is a bit of a historian.
well, I know, well,
Also
well,
done
there was a bit of a story.
He's read many things.
How he ended up in the
Oh, is
hotel
that
was probably the one I was
how
more
late
interested in.
Ross started?
Yeah, he done it in the pub too. Yeah.
Given our, I'll just give Joel a quick opportunity to sort of address what changes over the initial design we can do within this funding, funding position, Joel. Councillors agreements.
Through the mayor, so a couple of forms of feedback that we got. We obviously got our written forms through the consultation period, and we also went and did a drop-in session at the park. From the drop-in session, probably the most important aspect of the discussion on that day was around the parking available to access the park. And I guess the view and supported by us was that, well, we can't reduce any parking numbers or take away parking spaces without replacing them in some form adjacent to the park. That formed most of the discussion on the day at the drop-in. Navigating that sort of made it a little bit difficult at the time to sort of confirm what fencing improvements could be made and items like that. Other items discussed on that drop-in session day was just around updating the park furniture. It's pretty tired and old. Potential for power bollards to support community events in the park, not having to run cables across the park from the toilet block. And then we talked to the Apex group about their want to upgrade a sign reflecting Tintinara Apex Park, which they've already fabricated and will make available. And we've confirmed with them that can all be installed, but suggested that let's get to the end of what our deliverables will be, and then we can put it in the most suitable spot. And then finalising the drop-in session, there was a lot of talk around the toilet block and the playground. Could we update the playground equipment, update the toilet block? Probably our response, they see as their own projects in their own right, and we could expend the whole amount of budget just on those two items alone, and probably felt that at this point in time, the value for money was probably better spent doing some of these other items. So we took that on notice. There's a few operational wins that we could look to achieve for the toilet block with some better lights, and I think there was some graffiti concerns and things like that. In terms of the playground, that was one thing that was really evident through the written feedback that we received for the consultation period. Just any improvement would be great. Looks like we can factor in a little basket swing that would be suitable for all ages, from young toddler to a 12, 13-year-old. So that's something that we'll look to do, and looks like it can fit adequately. Of note, something like that, we've preemptively put an order in, and it will come just before the end of financial year. So these are the sort of lead times that we're having to deal with a lot of this stuff. We've sort of done the same with the picnic benches. We tried to be as preemptive as we could without disregarding consultation. So things like that have got wheels in motion. And then from there, we are just confirming with DIT, in principle, it looks like they'll support the 30-degree angle parking out in front of the park. They're satisfied, I guess, so long as that we were able to display that the reversing out manoeuvres don't actually affect the lane of traffic, which they don't, by the Australian standards for on-street parking. there's more than enough room for the cars to back out without actually getting anywhere near the lane of traffic. So we're still trying to piece that together at the moment, and we'll probably close that detail as we go back to the public to say, here's what we think we're going to deliver. Give us your feedback. But we're hopeful that we can potentially, if that being the case, we see no reason why we can't fully fence the park, because we've been able to make provision for additional car parks to replace the ones that were internal to the park. So, which means that we could be able to increase the lawn area, make some improvements, irrigation for the park, etc. I think I've rounded it out. There's probably some things I've missed, but happy to take any questions.
Questions, councillors? Councillor Bland?
Just a quick question on the parking. I'm just trying to read it. What's the width of the car parks?
They would be,
There's something there I can't read.
2.5 metres, yep.
And that is not the minimum,
No, minimum is 2.4.
100 mil on either
Yeah.
side.
So that's,
Large?
yep.
And there doesn't appear to be a disability one either.
Yeah, the proposal, as we continue to refine this, the disability one will probably be on the northern end, have the shared zone on the end of it.
And just, yeah, they're big vehicles, most of them these days. Hard to get out of them. in some
Well, there's a
areas.
disability park by the toilet on the other side.
Yeah,
But Joel, just, this sort of comes as a bit of a shock, because one of the things was, like, one of the things, well, there's 3 there this morning, B doubles parked along there. You're going to cut them out completely. I thought the idea was the memorial thing in the middle and the roundabout was to keep that. Now you've taken that out, and one of the things I think mostly was you don't want to lose any parking area. And in this we're going to lose virtually nearly all the parking area.
through the mayor, heavy vehicles shouldn't be parking there. There's a sufficient heavy vehicle parking area further to the north of the service station that I would argue is at a suitable walking distance to any shop within a 200 metre.
I think that was
Yes.
the comment that was made too, that you won't walk. Like that's 100, 200 metres down, they come back. So that was the other thing, because, like there was a lot of them pull up there to get dollars, of course.
Mhm.
And to go to the Shell or wherever.
Yeah. So in line with recent discussions with DIT around heavy vehicle parking up and down the Dukes, there's several that have been a topic of discussion. They don't want to see any heavy vehicle parking area, including the one to the north of the Shell. Their promotion is that there's a suitable, even better heavy vehicle rest stop further down near the northernmost service station. That's where they prefer heavy vehicles to be pulling up. Now, I know that makes it hard to access local shops, etc. But I would suggest that what we're proposing here is not out of alignment as to what DIT's thoughts are with regards to the highway and heavy vehicles.
So you're going to put this out for more consultation?
The intention is, and this is not another consultation period, this is just rounding out the consultation process. But we take this today and we put it back out to the community for a period of, I think, 3 weeks to be, to say, here's our intention. Based on your feedback, we feel that this is the best solution for the park. These are the deliverables. Give us your final feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. And unless there's anything glaringly obvious, we proceed. Now, if it becomes evident that something is of real concern to our majority group of people, that would be the only occasion where we potentially reconsider something.
Councillors just need to be aware that money for the park is coming from LRCI, and that's 30 June.
Yeah.
30 June.
I think, sorry, Mr. Mayor, and through the Mayor, it became very, following that drop-in session, it was you know, the desire to retain the parking in the actual park, which I think is to the detriment of the park. Like, the idea is to open it up, create more space for usage, give the park actually better capacity to have a community event or function in it. If we were to keep that parking in there, it made it very hard to actually achieve any value in terms of improvement to the park. The whole idea around the concept of the project was to improve it as a space as a whole, make it more usable for people that are actually there to use the park. And I think effectively we have provided an equal amount of parking to replace what would be taken away. Not navigating that there's potential that we may have heavy vehicles pull up in those spots, and that becomes a compliance matter to manage. And there's various means that we can do that, via signage, via suitable line marking. But we, as an internal administration, feel that this is the best way that we can get a really good value outcome for the community and the park.
Other questions? Councillor Peach, I think you had your hand half up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think in terms of that feedback that was provided, I think this threads the needle fairly well, because achieving a good outcome, I walked away from that consultation going, it's going to be challenging, and I think this does it. I just stopped in there again and had a look yesterday, and I think in terms of that RAA station, which has started down the other end, the precinct idea is actually going to be visually quite there, which will be great. I do think there's an opportunity potentially as part of the RAA thing down the track to put some more parking further down for caravans and so forth, particularly if we can get another entry point off the highway at that end. So I would like to see that progress, but yeah, great to see the swing in there. I will have to declare a slight conflict there that my wife was one of the people that put a submission in around that. But no, I think that's that it's coming together reasonably well. Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to move the motion, but I would just like to vary point 2 for the sake of the Apex, old Apexians, that we endorse the final project design, including the installation of the Apex sign.
I'm happy to second that one.
Yep, certainly. Move Councillor Peach. Go to Councillor Rountree. Councillor Peach, you want to speak to it?
You just notice Councillor Bland had a hand up.
No, that's fine.
Okay. No, look, as I said, Mr. Mayor, I think there's something about this that everybody won't quite like, but I think there's something in this that most people will feel that they've had something come together. And as I mentioned just before in my comments, I do think the precinct idea is starting to take shape on that side of the highway, and looking forward to seeing it done, noting that the temporary fencing is already up for the fence down from the railway crossing, which is separate too, but does form part of this, so it'll be good to have it complete.
Yeah, so, yeah, thank you. And in combination, there's $250,000 going to this project, so it's not insubstantial. Councillor Rountree, you want to speak?
No, I actually thought it was quite good, and I agree that cars and trucks can park up further, and this is a really nice space.
Any other councillors wish to? Councillor Arthur?
Just one question, endorse the final project design. Does that mean we've accepted that and that's what it's going to be?
Well, not quite, but sort of. We need a substantive reaction.
Also,
Because the indication staff member, Joel, was that it's still out for consultation.
It'll go back out to public consultation.
Yeah. So we're not endorsing it.
What have you,
endorsing what's
draft
going
before
out,
project, final draft?
No, sorry, through me, I'm happy to vary it to the director's suggestion there that endorse the final draft project design.
Yep.
No, it's fine, thank you.
So I'm just going to add something here. We as a council tend to get quite a quandary around what I call small civil projects, parks and gardens, and I congratulate the staff and everyone involved in bringing this one to nearly there now. Everyone has different views, and sometimes the views don't include some statutory requirements and this and that. So I think this process is probably a good example of how we can tackle these sort of projects. We've got more of them coming, and I think we've got a new staff member coming on board that specialises in this area as well. So because they do tend to bog us down in this council some days. Anyone else wish to speak? Joel?
Yeah, so through the Mayor, and just so it's been an enlightenment, the consultation process for this. You know, if we're consulting on something, we probably do need to give ourselves 12 months.
12 months, that's right.
And look, it was just a perfect storm. We only fully knew funding November-ish, and the moment we knew that this was something we needed to consult on, and so we got on the front foot with the comms team straight away. But it takes 3 to 4 months to do a 6-week consultation, and that's to include the preparatory work, consultation period, the follow-up work, where we're at now, the final version out to the community again to get the final blessing. It's an elongated process. So had some discussions with Kelly and the team just around our policy, around community engagement, and with a view that, you know, we're really keen to do it for our projects, but it's got to be agile. We've got to be able to get in and out quite quickly and get the feedback we need. And, you know, timeframes around how long something needs to be out for. Something like this is deemed a major project, means it needs to be out 6 weeks. Would we have got the relevant feedback 2 to 3 weeks? I think we probably could have. But, you know, there's just some discussion to have internally, and it could be another policy that we look to review in the near future. So.
Thank you. So as you know, some of the drive of this comes out of the master plans that were done 2 or 3 years ago, but they always need finessing and they're always open to change. And it's a difficult area, but it's pleasing that our residents and ratepayers take such a strong interest in our community. And particularly, and in each of these cases, we generally have had an Apex or a Lions that have built them initially, so we've got to acknowledge that position as well. Okay, the motion is on the screen, councillors, and it's just got a couple of things. We endorse the final draft project design. And that's the only change, I think, isn't it? It's been moved by Councillor Peach, seconded Councillor Ranty. Councillor Peach, you'll close.
Close.
Closed. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? You're against, Councillor Arthur?
Yes, I'm against that design.
I just wanted to see if you got your arm up slowly, that's all. It's carried, not unanimous with this, with Councillor Arthur being any councillor against it. Okay, thank you. Number 10, Roads and Infrastructure Committee meeting. Minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of. Recommendations to receive that, councillor. Someone move that way, please. Roundtree and O'Hara are the two. Is there any discussion?
Just a procedural question, actually. When we had the roads and infrastructure meeting and we moved a motion, I think it was 0425, regarding how many times public toilet amenities are cleaned. Is that something that needs to go into our strategic directions register, or how is that picked up to ensure it happens, or is it just picked up through the R&I meeting?
So it's operational, councillor.
Operational?
It's
So it just
operational
gets
and
picked up?
budget. Well,
Okay.
would have read that in that respect. No debate. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. What time's the first workshop supposed to be, Ash? Number 11.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
if I may, can we deal with 1, 2 and 3 separately? I may have a conflict at 4, which I've only just realised. the body that will be putting in the submission for the funding, I'm the president of.
Certainly.
Given that a form has to be filled out. So if it's okay through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could move 1, 2 and 3 with the variation, and then I will declare a conflict for 4 and leave the room.
So councillors and to the public, there has been a variance in point 2 in the recommendation due to some further work by the staff, advised to councillors last night in an email, and that is that we can issue keys, 3 sets of keys to committee members. That's the variance that we're putting in. You're moving the first 3.
If I may,
Pete, you're moving the first 3.
yeah, so if I may receive and endorse the recommendations in the minutes of, remove point 2 and leave point 3.
We adore.
I'm stopping now because my brain's getting phased. You just want to remove that?
Just remove that, because if we're endorsing the recommendations in the minutes, it's covered. So receive and endorse the recommendations, so the minutes and recommendations of.
Sure.
Recommendations and minutes, yep.
Is there a seconder for those 2 points? Councillor Bland, thank you. Is there any discussion? Are you on the committee, councillor?
Of the War Memorial Committee? Yes, as the council rep, so I don't have a conflict.
That's right. Okay.
That's quite clear, because I've explored this with the legal team.
And through you, councillor H.
If for probity, I'm happy to withdraw as mover.
I'm the rep, you're only a member, so you can stay.
No, that changed. I'm now the rep.
All right, well, that's good.
Perhaps the
Yeah,
advisor,
that changed
if
the
another
past.
councillor wished to replace the mover, that were useful.
I'm happy to move if
Councillor-
somebody wants
So
to.
councillor
second
Bland
it.
is now the mover to the recommended, and who wants to be the seconder then?
I'll second it then because.
You're all right.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes perception is reality. There's 2, we've made a few amendments and changes. Councillor Bland, councillor Arthur is the seconder to what points 1 and 2. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, it's carried unanimously, I trust. Councillor, you're going to declare what? The purpose of the record.
So the recommendation from the
Or-
committee, through Mayor, was that council approves that. The council administration has now come back and said that the forms also need to be completed. Given that I will be the person completing the forms as current president of trade, or somebody else may, but I am the current president of trade, which will be the organisation that will be completing the forms. I need to declare material, I think.
Ashley, is that right?
Sorry. Say that again.
So-
I'm just,
Trade will be the body that hires the venue, because that's where the insurance is. I'm currently the president of trade. That's a material conflict. I'll just leave the room regardless, to be on the safe side,
We
if
just
that's
need
all
to,
right.
we just need to declare which one it is. That's all it is. You leave, yep.
Yeah, I'm just thinking potentially the request would meet the policy anyway, as it's a community group, asking for fees to be waived. But we could say it's general interest, just to be safe.
I'll call it a general interest conflict, but I will leave the room.
Right, is there someone else wish to move it, please? Councillor Roundtree is the mover, is the seconder. Councillor Maidment, thank you. Any discussions around the point, what is now point 3?
no, I think it's, what we.
Straightforward,
Yeah,
yep.
pretty straightforward, and it's, I think they're expecting about 168 events, so we've got some, MPs coming along. I think, Tony Payson, maybe Nick McBride will be there, and some other representatives from mental health departments will be there, so it should be a very good night.
Anyone else?
No. Good.
Okay, there's no one else. Question is, as in point 3.
So do I close?
Yep. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? As against? Carried unanimously. Councillors, I want a 5-minute break, please. It's 12 o'clock. We've got roughly an hour and a quarter before the next workshop. Back here by 12:10, please.
Is this lunch break?
No, it's not lunch break, but
It's just.
a break. In 2 hours.
Comfort break. We're in a car, it would say stop.
Yeah, that buzzer will be going off. Councillor Arthur. We resume 12:12. 11:1, Office of the Chief Executive Officer's Information Report. Councillors, there is a recommendation there.
Happy to move that way, but I have a question as well.
Yeah. Councillor Roundtree moves. Is there a seconder? Councillor Maidment, your question, Councillor Roundtree, is?
With the caravan park data for February available, it's happened a couple of times. What stops that data being collected? Is it a fault with the machine or is it just running out of time or what happens there?
What page are you on, councillor?
It's, I don't know what page, community development, when we're talking about how many people come and
Ah.
stay at the caravan. It just says that February data isn't available and it's come up a couple of times and I'm just not sure. We're back, into March, why we don't get that data.
It just hasn't been, it'll come in the next month. It hasn't been done yet.
So is it collected by us or is it something fed from the system?
We pull it from the system, but I'll take it on notice, but I suspect we just haven't collated it yet.
Okay.
Other questions, councillors? Councillor Maidment.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and through you, the mental health first aid training, have we got any idea of the bookings, how that's going? Throwing one at you.
Hang on. So you, yeah, do we know him? I don't know the booking number.
The public one.
We
I
can,
can give a update on that. It was raised at the most recent WHS committee meeting. We've got 20 places and we'll be picking staff that have direct reports that are subordinates. So the first cut will be those staff that have those, and then if there's any vacancies after that, we'll then let others. So we expect that we'll have all 20 places filled.
Okay, thank you.
and through you, Mayor, we can just answer the question from councillor Roundtree.
Through the chair. Community sessions being
As
run
well,
in
yeah.
Knowlton and Meningie. I believe the Knowlton take-up has been quite good. I think they're looking at potentially postponing the Meningie session just to lower numbers with that one.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Page 63, the Coorong Council externally funded projects. We've got two there with the Wellington East water supply, one in the yellow status and the other one is another one through the Department of Treasury and Finance in yellow status. In other words, application submitted. We had another grant that was successful. I thought that would have been in there.
The water wise one. Is that in there?
Just looking, Mayor. Yeah, through you, Chair, that's the National Water Grid Wiser Initiative. That's the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
We haven't got the engagement agreement yet from the Commonwealth.
Oh, okay.
And the second one you're talking about, I think, councillor Coleman, is around the state government one, which is locally referred to as LGIP, and we're still in negotiations with the state around that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Other questions? Okay. The recommendation is council receive and note the report. All those in favour? Against, that's carried unanimously. Number 2, corporate community information report. Move that way, please. Councillors Qualman and Maidment. Questions?
Yeah, I just need to find that. Oh, hey.
Yes, councillor Maidment.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Customer requests jumped up a fair bit in the last month. Do we have any indication what they were? And there's still 53 that are remaining. Any update on roughly where we're at with those, please?
Through you, Chair, that would be an end of month data, so you'll see the update every month. So
Yep.
I'm guessing again, but I would say it's the rates are due on the first of the month. So I suspect that there would have been a fair bit of activity the week before that.
Okay.
Other
Well, these are the
questions?
CRMs. Thank you.
No other questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 3 will be an R and I. Roads and Infrastructure Information Report, councillors. Councillor Roundtree, you've moved.
And I have a question as well.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Coleman. Your question, councillor Roundtree.
So this is under the community facilities operation. I noticed that the Jade Salem parked bench at the Canalpin Playground site, which is near the netball courts, and had undergone some maintenance. It was a question raised before whether that was a playground that was in the care of the council, or was that part of I think that answered the question. If you're fixing it, it must be part of the council's playground area.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, through the chair. Apologies, I hadn't circulated that, but yeah, we asked, and it is ours that we do maintain.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then with the car park at the Canalpin swimming pool, on the design that's there was talk about including that large gum tree in that new design.
Joel, Director.
Double check. We have incorporated, we've taken that feedback.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure whether that picture, I couldn't see, it was too small.
Through the mayor, absolutely noted that tree needs to remain, and rather than going and spending $1,000 getting the designer to design something, we feel it's something we can just navigate on site with the contractor that does the work.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Qualman and then councillor Peach.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Page 100 of the hard copy, the Narung Jetty inspection. We're going to get some information regarding the engineering consultants who had a bit of a look at this jetty, this asset.
Yes, yep, through the chair, we've undertaken the survey. Once we've had a further look at it, we'll come back to council with an update of next steps.
And we'll sit down and shock.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Luckily we'll all be sitting down at the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Yep, councillor O'Hara on that subject, yes.
Yeah, I went out and had a bit of a look at the Narung Jetty the other day, and certainly there's a lot of cross members, in particular. I mean, the uprights on the sides are pretty good, Nick. Every second one's been concreted, and the others are perma pine, treated pine. But a lot of the cross members are rotted out. I scratched and carried on for 20 minutes. I couldn't find a termite anywhere, but they're certainly rotted out. But yeah, it does need some work.
So we've got to look at how we might rejuvenate that. Councillor Bland on the same subject, I trust.
It is on the same subject, and in that case, we've received a report, I'm assuming, that's a written report, I'm assuming also with photographs.
Yes, yeah, through the chair. I haven't cited the report myself, but yeah, it'll have photographs and it'll be
Are we able
detailed.
to see a copy of that?
To you, Chair, that's what Josh just said. We're just working through that at first, and then we'll bring it back to council of what we need to do next.
Through you, Chair, I don't believe that was what Josh said. He said we'd have the report on
We've
the
got
report.
the report.
But could councillors have a copy of the initial investigation report, please?
Can I take that on notice? I'll just see in terms of if there's any detailed costings, any commercial to the port. I'll review that and then circulate something to council outside of the
Circulated under
session.
confidence.
Sorry.
Okay.
All right, through you, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
Look, through the chair, I suspect that there'll be we'll host a workshop with council, and depending on, might have to hold that in confidence, given we'll be potentially talking about costings for full replacement and other alternative options. So, but I'll take it on notice and come back to council out of session.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I've got to councillor Peach next. Different subject, I would hope.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, I just had a query about the road counters. The road counter on Gunwell Road isn't in the location in the photograph. I don't think there's too much difference that it will make, given that there's not too many driveways. They just wondered if that was an issue or not.
Well, it could be, but probably not substantially.
I'll take that on notice and I'll let you know.
There's just a little bit of truck access. The truck's being used between where it is currently and the intersection. So I wasn't sure, given they're not coming into the road very far, whether it was an issue or not, but I just thought I'd ask a question.
Any other questions, councillors, in this report? Councillor O'Hara?
It's not a question, but I'll just make a statement that I think Joel's done a good job of noticing that curbing needed doing on the Narung Road, because I walk up and down there every day and I've never noticed anything wrong with it. But since Joel said he was going to do it, I've had a look and it is in pretty bad shape. So Well done, Joel.
Trying to work out what I deduce out of that, councillor.
A positive.
Take it as a compliment.
I was going to say it's a positive.
More about councillor Patterson.
Specsavers.
Thinking. Okay, anyone else?
Give them up.
We've moved and seconded. I'm going to put the motion. We receive and note the report. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Right.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I just ask one more question on that?
Mhm.
When we were doing Alexandrina Drive at Narang, I didn't realise, are we doing it all the way to Rowton, are we? Sorry.
The Alexandrina Drive, Joel,
I was supposed to only do the
Is-
turn off.
looks like, well,
Through the mayor, from the ferry through to the Narung, the Rowcan entrance wall.
The Rowton entrance?
Yep.
Past the old area.
yeah.
I thought it was.
Not into Rowcan, just to the, where the brick walls are.
It is.
Yep.
I think that's funded the slurp process, that one, councillor, yeah. And
Yeah, I didn't realise it was that far.
Yeah, through the mayor, works will ramp up there next week. They'll do the stabilisation and seal the week after.
and then it'll rain.
But right.
Any other questions while we're all here? Thanks, Joel. Where have I got? Questions with notice, I have Neil. Questions without notice, councillors. Councillor Peach, yes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wonder if we could have an update regarding the Corella control program, and what works have been undertaken in the last couple of weeks and what works are being planned in that space going forward. We may, I'll just say this, we may have a perception issue around what we're doing. So further to my question, I'd also like to ask what we're going to be doing in terms of notifying the community of the works being undertaken going forward.
Yep, through the chair. So we've undertaken several days of shooting in both, live shooting in both Meningie and Tail and Bend. And we had some success implementing gas guns to move along with the live shooting. So I believe, and I confirmed with Councillor O'Hara before the meeting, Meningie's not too bad at the moment. Tail and Bend.
Hold on, I live there too, and I'd argue with him. He lives in a different street. Right across my house
Sorry,
all night and in,
Bit of canvas.
I go out, get out and bang the tree and with a bottle because they tell me it's the only vibration I can borrow to get rid of it.
In terms of Tail and Bend, we've had it's been slightly more challenging, just in terms of, we undertook some live shooting, but we've had some challenges with just, the public being close by when we've needed to use gas guns. So and on top of that too, we've had staff, just because our Confact Tail and Bend staff cover off people, don't always have someone in the township when we need someone to come with a gas gun. So what we're looking to do is some of the admin team, or myself included, and the likes of Joel and Ash are going to do their VOCs for a gas gun. Undertaking that later this week or early next week, so that we can go out and use them in the event that there's no one around, the birds are there. Sometimes it just, I mean, even yesterday for me, I would have liked to have gone out and let a gas gun off because they were around and we didn't have anyone close by. So that's what we're looking to implement. So we've got more options available to us. We're also looking at doing another live shoot in the coming weeks. Takes a bit of coordination between the contractor, our compliance officer, and our Confact staff as well. I met with Vitera representatives last Wednesday about their CHIRP trial, thinking that they were going to show us how it works and what the benefits are, but they were also wanting to discuss with council about a sacrificial nearby that they can send the birds to. So as I've communicated before, this project or this trial is about scaring the birds away from Vitera and then moving them somewhere else, and they need a site for them to go to where they know it's safe, and they basically play bird sounds that say, yep, this is a safe location. We don't have anything that kind of meets their needs, and I got confirmation this morning that they've developed their own sacrificial site on Vitera land for the rest of this trial, which will end in July this year as a starting point. Now, I've been trying to get a number out of the contractor or this company about what it might cost, and they've been very cagey about that. But I do know that we would be looking in the vicinity of a couple of $100,000 per site per year. So it's not a cheap exercise. It doesn't deal with the underlying population concern. It's effectively moving the birds around and trying to teach them not to come into certain locations. So, yeah, well, I'm hoping that Viterra will share their results once they've finished their trial, and then there'll be something that we can talk to council with at that time.
And we've got Viterra representatives coming this afternoon in the workshop still?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, to
So,
discuss their process.
What's an average lifespan of a corolla?
Too long.
about 40 years apparently.
My goodness.
Yeah, they'll live
And
forever.
really interesting is that the due presentation that I attended last month
Get to 100.
talked about there being a exponential growth in their population, notwithstanding that they are congregating in areas and not migrating necessarily like they have done previously. But the representatives from CHIRP were of the view that populations aren't out of control, and it's actually they're in decline in some respects. They're just congregating in these areas for longer, which it's almost opposite ends of the spectrum. So, not sure who to believe.
And yeah,
Not
so the
them.
second part of the councillor, the second part was how are we communicating this? I think that's what you want to
Yeah,
emphasise.
and sorry, and I was going to say that we don't have a website at the moment or web page on our that talks about corolla management. So I'll be looking to draft something up that will be similar that we can point our residents to say, here's what we're doing, here's what's working, here's what's not working, and here's what's potentially coming in the future with state government.
You're still on corellas?
Don Corellis. Supplementary to that, based on the director's response. Further question, what can we do to increase the frequency of live shooting? Because I think that's something that has been picked up on. And once that question is answered through, Mr. Mayor, I'd like the answers recorded in the minutes to this question, please.
To this question?
To these group of questions around corella. They can be broadly recorded, but just so that there's a record in the minutes around it.
What are we doing to increase live shooting?
What can we do?
I think there's two issues, and Josh, you can continue, but there's two issues with the live shooting. One is that there are very few contractors available, so the demand for them is quite high. So it's about booking them in advance and probably getting them into some sort of cycle so that they know they're coming here. But the competition for their time is fairly high. And the second is we would continue to look at what the budget is for that. So we would need to bring that information back to you on a regular basis because it is not built into our budget. And I think we've had that conversation. So we need to work out what budget will be. There was a discussion about $10,000 for next year. I don't think that will go anywhere close if you want to increase the live shootings.
Yeah, what I would say, yeah, just to second the CEO's comments is it does take a bit of coordination, and we've had instances, not in recent times, we've had instances where we've engaged the shooter and then the birds haven't shown up, or they're clever birds. They see a high vis, they see that, then they know not to come into the area as well. So it's there's not a simple solution, but we can certainly look at more live shooting.
Councillor Quammen, are you on corellas?
Yes, I certainly are. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, to Councillor Peake for starting off, asked the question better than what I could have. And I'm glad to hear that our Director of Roads Infrastructure has mentioned that we're going to utilise more staff or train them up to use the gas guns, because unfortunately I've been hearing a lot of complaints from locals that it was perceived the council isn't doing enough action and, re the gas gun. So that's good. And the most important thing is community being involved in this, the community through communication and made aware of what actions we are taking, because I have trouble explaining, like that elderly woman, I emailed everybody the other day what we were doing, and she's in a lot of strife, bad health, and the place is a mess for and the noise. So yes, we've got to try and do something, and I know it's not easy, but we can demonstrate that what we're doing and get it out there, and the community become aware that where we're at and what action we're taking. I think that'll sit better with the community.
Councillor O'Hara?
Yeah, just to back that up, I think it's important we keep using the gas guns a lot, because people say, oh, you're only scaring them from one place to another. But while they're flying, they're not doing damage. Right? They're making noise, but they're not doing damage. And the gas guns do work, and they do get sick of them, and they shift. I watch them at home,
Place, yeah.
and they do shift, because of
Behind
the
me,
gas
park,
guns.
in the park,
There's-
during the park.
Okay,
Mr Mayor, may it be a suggestion when we look back in our archives and find out what it was costing us some 6 or 8 years ago when we were live shooting all the time. We must surely have records of what we were doing and how it was
It wasn't
costing.
costing as much because we had a staff member who was doing it.
Yeah.
Now,
okay, we can
Our
follow
staff
up.
member was one of those who was in charge of it. And it was very successful, particularly if you get there and you get the scouts. Before they really get in, if you shoot the scouts, the rest don't come.
So through the chair, my understanding about past practices was that we were undertaking live shooting, but it wasn't costing council any money. The officer involved was using their own equipment, their own shells, and in some instances in their own time as well. So looking back 6 or 8 years is not going to give us a true reflection of what the true cost would be for Corella management.
It was more than just the staff member.
Can
He
I
didn't shoot individually.
also make
They
a
had
comment?
others.
Sorry, can I make-
Miles?
But surely that should have some sort of records in place.
Can I make a comment about 8 years ago? They were predictable. They would come in at a certain time of the year and they would leave at a certain time of the year.
they're getting later.
Now, that is not the case anymore, and all of the councils are saying the same thing. You used to be able to plan your budget for a period of the year, number of months, and you would be able to predict when you'd need your shooting to occur, when you'd need your gas guns in place, and it was manageable. Now, it's almost as if especially with the weather being the way it is, they're here all the time, all year. Changed dramatically. So I do understand your point about looking back, but I think you need to understand things have changed. Changed a lot.
I'm going to wind that up because we know that the current's the other part of your second part of your question. Who else with questions without notice?
Oh, I have, Mr Mayor. Just regarding the new defib machines that are supposed to be put in, is there any way that when they are put in, they can be locatable? Because, well, someone's driving, they've got a problem, find out where they are. This was, once again, probably is not a council, individual council, that it is for us, but it's something that should be done, all over the state so they know where they are.
Yep, he's got the answer, I reckon.
So every AED has to be registered on a website and pinpointed its location. So anyone can access that app and they'll be able to closest AED to wherever they are.
Yeah. Who's going to update that? Because now with legislation, we're going to be supplying, defibs all over the place.
State government.
State government will take charge of that, but we're required to ensure that our information is correct on that website.
Okay. Oh, yep. So we're required to.
Yes.
Can I just ask a follow-up question in the vein of that one? I was asked this question last night. The defib machines on council buildings, will they be internal or external?
So they'll be internal. That's so so let's put it this way, they don't need to be external. The regulations that come through and they said internal, And as long as there's appropriate signage. And primarily they're located in council buildings that are primarily manned, occupied.
So if I may have a further question, don't we have a responsibility under the new legislation to have them on buildings regardless of occupancy, but based on potential occupancy? So I'm thinking halls here.
Definitely halls. Halls are included.
So in that scenario, I was asked by a member of the hall committee last night whether it would be more appropriate to have them on the outside of a building that's not necessarily open at all times.
Finally, the question of having them external to risk associated with them being damaged, vandalised, because the other thing that we're concerned about, and for all councils, it hasn't quite been dealt with, is the liability should someone come to use an AED and for some reason or not it's not functioning or it hasn't got pads. Is there then a potential that someone needs that and doesn't get to use it and maybe dies, that it comes back upon council to for some liability? That hasn't been answered yet. And there's no, and it's not as if the councils get the right to indemnity. We don't.
Smith, could I ask through you that we perhaps explore this a little further? Because I think using the director's example, I'd rather have the availability to one external than not have any availability at all. So I think it's an important question to answer. Because in a locked building case, that person can't access it full stop, regardless whether the pads are there. So I'd be keen to
Just
see
get some more definition around that.
What would be an issue, what would be an opportunity though, would be to look at, say, in a public environment, are there other AEDs that are available, i.e. there's an AED outside the hotel, I believe, down here, there'll be an AED at the ambulance site here, but maybe have a look at the hall in context of the street and any other. It's not just councils that have been pulled into this legislation, it's other businesses as well.
Councillor Bland.
I just want to follow up on Councillor Peach's comments, and that is, it's worried me a lot, given the significant amount of tourism that we have through our communities now, and the fact that we don't have access in some form to an external one. I know it's all fraught with danger and how one manages it, etc. But I think looking at the where we live, a highway, waterways, wherever, we need to work out what's required in those areas. So I think the hall was a good example of whether if you have one in the main street of Tintinara, you've got one and the locals know where it is. But we have one at the council office in Meningie. I'm just putting that out there. Obviously, you know, there's one on the hotel here, but knowing that they're available and how you would access them, how they're managed and checked and signed off on daily or fortnightly, weekly. I would have said nearly daily in our case, but that's council process.
So we need to do a bit more work then.
Well, we're working through that, but
Yeah, I get the problem. I just,
been drafted yet.
yeah, because I don't know how to fix
The
this
act's
problem.
there and the discussion papers come out and we're obligated to have these in by January next year, but we actually haven't had the opportunity to, as a sector, have the opportunity to look at the regulations. And also, and when I'm talking about the liability issues, I'm quoting solicitors talking on behalf of the LGRS, our insurers. So it is a very, very important that we do get this right. I completely understand the situation of needing availability of an external AED outside of office hours in a town. I completely get that, and we'll do our best to achieve that.
And the point I'd also make there is none of our towns have full-time paid AMBOs that you can ring and somebody could start CPR, etc. in a short time. So I think there's a number of sides to it that we need to look at.
Any other questions without notice? Councillor Arthur.
Yeah, mine's to Director of Infrastructure. When are we going up the next section of Carcooma Road? I've never driven a road in our area in the condition that is in at the present moment. There's potholes, blowouts. I thought they had supposed to have done something to keep it reasonable.
Yeah.
I went to Lamoureux yesterday for the wild dog, and it was a disaster.
Okay, all right. Through the chair, the intention is to start the final stage before the end of the financial year, but we won't reach the window for, we won't meet the window for sealing before the cooler weather comes in. So the formation will take place. We'll come back and then do stabilisation and seal in the new financial year. But I'll talk to Joel about the contractor maintaining the road and make sure there's no blowouts. So I'll take that on notice.
I know it has taken a hiding.
Yeah,
all the rubble.
and we did last time we spoke to council. We gave an undertaking that every couple of weeks, glaring safety concerns. So I'll raise it with Joel, and he can raise it with the contractor.
And it should be a pat on the back to Southern Valley Council. Actually, their section they've done up is absolutely magnificent.
They took the rubble from our area, councillor.
And they took the rubble from our area. No good for our roads.
Well, the different roads. One's an open road, one's a closed road, a sealed road. What else? Any other questions without notice? None. Thank you.
You want
Just the ones around Corella. I have so moved.
Yep.
them? Harry?
Who's the seconder?
I'll second.
Bland. Any discussion?
I just say, Mr. Mayor, broad themes. There was some in-depth response there, but just for community benefit, if we can have the broad themes recorded, it'd be great.
Right. Being that case, broad themes around the Corellas. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. I've moved to motions with notice, I think. Yep. First one there, councillors. You want to move that one, councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that just with the addition of the word standing, that council establishes a formalised standing working group. So moved. No.
Seconder?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, no. Just getting a seconder. You're free to speak, councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just note that if this is passed, I'd like it recorded in the decisions register. Mr. Mayor, this motion came out of a couple of conversations I had at the Deputy Mayor Forum in Adelaide some weeks ago, when I was discussing with other Deputy Mayors how their councils worked with relation to policy development and so forth, and it led me on a bit of a expedition looking at some other councils that have Section 41 committees around this issue. Following a request from administration, as I've noted in the background, I have varied the motion to make it just a working group, to allow it to ebb and flow with the demand of policy review. Mr. Mayor, I think this is beneficial to the council in that it will enable some council members to have an in-depth look at policy and review and provide recommendations on how they might be edited and altered before it comes to the full chamber of council, and will give the councillors involved more time to look at it in depth as opposed to within an hour workshop or within the confines of meeting procedure. So I will move the motion on that basis.
You, councillor Roundtree, you're the seconder.
Yes, I've nothing further to add. That I think this is a sensible idea. It might help us get through things a bit quicker.
Okay. Anyone else wish to enter the debate? Councillor Maidman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, through you. Just a question to the mover if possible, but how many times do you think that would come together per year, say?
So through you, Mayor, at the moment, reasonably regularly, because we're currently trying to get through the batch of policy.
Yes.
And then we might get to a 12-month window where it doesn't meet at all. And I think that was the director's suggestion around the working group, through you, Mayor, that if it's Section 41, we have to keep doing it, whereas with the working group, we can really ramp up to demand, and then when that demand isn't there, we don't have to meet.
You would be able to tell, I suppose each year you could look at what the expiry date of the policies are coming up for the next 12 months, and you probably have a good stab then about how many times you might need to meet based on that. As Councillor Peach says, there's a whole bundle of them at the moment that need to be updated, but that will start to now smooth out.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Arthur.
Could I ask the motion, Councillor Peach? This is virtually what the staff do now and have been doing. And as Miles has mentioned, they've got a heaps of policies that we've got to be updated. The normal policy's got a 4-year,
It varies, but pretty
5-year
much.
standard on it. So they're supposed to be reviewed. So I'm just wondering what they're going to be doing that the staff shouldn't be doing.
So through you, Mr Mayor, the staff provide a first draft with any proposed revisions. The policies are documents of the chamber. And the CEO likes to remind us of that, if I may say so through you, Mayor, that it's our policy. We made the decision to endorse it. We have to live with the consequences. At the moment, I would say that the feedback that is sought from the elected members and how that's captured and incorporated has been a very ungainly process. I think this would smooth it out, that when we do pick up issues within a policy or terms of reference, this will enable us to have a conversation that gets us to a final point before it gets to the chamber and we knock a policy back or not because we're not quite happy with the outcome of it. So the policy is essentially our legislation, if I can use another level of government's frame of reference. It's the legislation our administration then has to abide by. And I think it's important that the elected members have a lot of purchase and say in how that's developed.
Well, just workshop or they're presented to council. So that might be good because that means those workshops only have to have 3 council members there, and we won't have to come to a lot of these workshops.
That's it.
Because, you know, like you have the workshop, we are presented with what is the proposal, have the workshop, we go through, then they're kicked off or whatever, changed, and then they come back to a council meeting. So I cannot see what we're going to do different unless we are going to say to them, these are the ones that have got to be prioritised and go from there. I can't see.
Through you, Mayor, if I may again, I would envisage this acting that it would probably lessen the workshop time because a lot of the in-depth delving into it would have been done beforehand, but I think it wouldn't take away the workshops. There might be a policy that the committee, that the group says this needs to go to a full workshop with all councillors before we provide it. And it would enable us to work outside of the time constraints of an hour slot. So we've had workshops so far where we've dealt with four or five policies, and I don't think that's necessarily enough time to deal with that many policies comprehensively.
O'Hara.
Yeah, I just, I think we're just, with this, we're going to be double dipping because we're going to come back to the whole council anyway. And the 3 or 4 councillors that are not on this committee still going to want to have their say when it comes to a workshop. So I just see it as double dipping.
If I may again.
In response.
In response. Mr Mayor, so this wouldn't take away the request from staff for feedback on a policy going to all councillors before this group looks at it. The councillors would still have an opportunity to have that first look. This would just enable this group to finesse those responses into a workable document before it gets to the full chamber.
Councillor Bland.
I can see both sides, but I actually am in favour of the working group. And I think that the discussion that is had at the working group can be put in dot point that these points have been considered. And I do think that also that it would streamline the information to councillors. I don't think it prevents councillors for following up on a further question if they don't think it's been covered in that policy. And I do believe that it would save time. In the long term, it would be probably sensible to have those committee meetings on a reasonably regular basis so the officer concerned had it time framed so that he or she could look at that So I'm actually in favour of it. I can see both sides, but I think I would like to give this a go.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak for or against, whatever? There being no more, you'll close, councillor Peach.
I close.
So best I can see, there's been a change in one word, standing is inserted somewhere, Ashley. But the motion is as it reads. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion's carried. Councillors Rountree, Peach, Land, Maidman and Qualman for. Councillors O'Hara, Arthur against. Thank you. Number 2, you want to, pretty self-explanatory, and congratulations on your nomination, councillor. It's pretty straightforward that a leave of absence be granted to the Deputy Mayor commencing from the close of nominations for the federal election this year and ceasing when the election results for the electoral division of Barker are declared. You're moving that way?
I'll move that way. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You, councillor Ban, you're seconding that?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion around that, councillors? No requirement legislation, but I think it's appropriate and polite. Being none, you'll close. So
Close.
that, I put the motion as it reads. Councillors, all those in favour? Very keen to go. That's carried unanimously. Motions without notice, councillor. 13.2. Declaring there is none. Minute action list, 14 councillors. I'm slipping away.
I think I have one.
Declaring there is none, councillors.
Oh, just quick one.
Quick one, quick of the dead.
31824 regarding morning swim sessions. How best provide extra lifeguards. The comment was that a report would be tabled at the R&I committee meeting in March, so that did occur. And then from there was another motion to report back on an alternate, I think on alternate options, i.e. electronic devices. So how does that get this minute? Is it a new minute or does it get reflected in this minute?
We should have updated that
Okay.
comment there.
All right.
Anything else? Okay. Clearing them over to confidential items, councillor. We're up to confidential items. Sorry? Well, we're going to, we're members of the public, we're going to move into confidence. Is that the spiel we want, or do we need the motion first?
Yeah.
So we just caught me flat-footed, Ashley. So item 15.1 is a review of confidential item 070/24. Councillor moved. Do we move into confidence, please? Councillor Qualman is the mover. Is there a seconder? Councillor Maidman. Any discussion? Right, put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. So we're now moving into confidence, please.